On a typical March morning in 2012, 15-year-old Mae LaMar got ready for school, not knowing that her life was about to change forever. After giving her mom a warm goodbye, Sierra started her usual short walk to the bus stop in the quiet town of Morgan Hill, California. But in just a few minutes, something went terribly wrong. Mae LaMar was born on October 19, 1996, in Fremont, California. She was Marlene's second child, and she already had a daughter, Danielle, who was 6 years older than Sierra. Sierra was known for her fun-loving and cheerful nature. Her teachers often described her as the class clown, always making others laugh without causing any trouble. Friends and family recall her as a confident young girl who had a knack for instilling that same confidence in those around her. From a young age, she enjoyed physical activities like dancing, and during her teenage years, she became involved in her school's cheerleading team. She also had a love for animated movies and often went to the cinema with her father, sharing this passion together. Sierra's parents divorced when she was still a child, and shortly afterward, Marlene began dating someone new. A couple of years later, Sierra moved to Morgan Hill, a city in the San Francisco Bay Area, with her mother and her mother's new partner. Meanwhile, her father remained in Fremont, and her older sister was attending college in Sacramento. Like many girls her age, Sierra was reluctant to leave behind her friends and the life she had always known. She also had reservations about her mother living with someone she wasn't married to. Despite these family challenges, Sierra's outgoing personality and positive energy helped her fit in easily at her new high school. She quickly became part of the cheerleading team and made many new friends while still keeping in touch with her old friends in Fremont, visiting them often since they were only an hour's drive away. Although she wasn't entirely happy with the move or her mother's new relationship, Sierra, then 15, maintained a good relationship with Marlene, often speaking frankly with her. She also had a close bond with her older sister, calling her several times a week to talk about school, friends, and the boys she liked. Just as Sierra was beginning to settle into her new life, an unexpected event shattered her dreams and future plans, plunging her family into a nightmare with no apparent end in sight. March 16, 2012, started like any other day. Sierra woke up, got ready for school, took a selfie, and uploaded it to her online diary, where she posted pictures almost daily. She then said goodbye to her mother, as was her routine every morning, giving her a hug and telling her she loved her before heading to the nearby bus stop. Later in the day, Marlene sent a few text messages to Sierra, reminding her of the chores she needed to do after school. When Sierra didn't respond, Marlene assumed her daughter was simply busy with schoolwork. After finishing work at 3:45 p.m., Marlene called Sierra to make sure everything was okay, but there was no answer. It wasn't until 6 p.m. when the school's automated attendance reporting system sent an email to Marlene that she realized Sierra had never made it to school. Alarmed, Marlene called 911 to report her daughter as missing. Unfortunately, crucial hours had been lost between Sierra's disappearance and the notification to the authorities. Upon receiving the report, The police first checked the school bus surveillance footage and discovered that Sierra never boarded the bus. This led them to conclude that something had happened between her house and the bus stop. Security footage from previous days provided no clues, so the search began in the area. Initially, the Santa Clara County Sheriff's Office treated Sierra's case as a standard missing person report, as there was no evidence suggesting foul play. However, over the next few days, evidence began to emerge that indicated otherwise. On March 17th, Sierra's cell phone was found near a road intersection in Morgan Hill, about 2 miles from her home, seemingly tossed from a vehicle. The following day, a pink Juicy Couture bag belonging to Sierra was discovered 2 intersections away, abandoned by the roadside. The bag contained neatly folded clothes, including a pair of jeans and a shirt, along with all of Sierra's documents and the $5 she had been given for lunch. Everything appeared untouched. In the days following Sierra's disappearance, a massive volunteer search was organized. The area around Sierra's home and the bus stop where she was last seen was rugged and challenging, with fields, hills, reservoirs, forests, ravines, and dense brush. The search focused on finding any evidence that might indicate a crime. Both authorities and volunteers worked tirelessly day after day, determined to find clues that could lead to Sierra. During the daily search efforts, approximately 150 items were discovered that could potentially be considered clues. One of these items was a box labeled handcuffs and used condoms, found by a volunteer about a mile from Sierra's bus stop. However, it was unclear if this discovery was related to Sierra's disappearance, as the area was known to be a popular hangout spot for teenagers who would often gather there to drink and engage in other activities. On March 20th, Sierra was officially classified as a missing person under the category of abduction, meaning someone had taken her against her will, which elevated the importance of the case. A forensic examination of Sierra's phone and personal computer revealed nothing useful, but investigators insisted on accounting for the whereabouts of all registered sex offenders in the area at the time of Sierra's disappearance. Surprisingly, among those on the list was Sierra's own father. Back in 2009, Steve had faced at least 10 counts of child molestation that occurred 5 years earlier. He pleaded guilty to one charge involving the sexual abuse of 3 of Sierra's friends, aged 8 to 9, during a sleepover at his home, and he served a year in jail. This was the real reason why Sierra had moved in with her mother, as her father was legally prohibited from living alone with a minor. However, Sierra's father was quickly ruled out as a suspect. Investigators found nothing in Sierra's family life to suggest she might have run away voluntarily. The disappearance of Sierra deeply affected the community, and she soon became known as everyone's daughter. While the police investigation progressed, volunteers continued their search efforts. On March 28th, DNA found on Sierra's jeans was matched to a man named Antolin Garcia Torres, 21 years old. Antolin worked at a local supermarket and lived in a trailer park about 8 miles from Sierra's home with his pregnant girlfriend, their 18-month-old baby, and his mother. During the investigation into Antolin, authorities uncovered that on 3 separate occasions, women had reported to the police that someone had tried to abduct them from parking lots at the supermarket where Antolin worked. One of the alleged victims claimed she had tried to defend herself with a pocket knife, but the attacker disarmed her and held the blade to her throat. Each of these women reported that the kidnapping attempts were thwarted by their screams or the presence of nearby people, though none of them had identified Antolin as the perpetrator. During one of the attacks, Antolin dropped a stun gun, which, upon analysis, was found to have his fingerprint on the battery. Antolin also had a criminal record that included felony assault and a charge of sexual relations with a minor in 2010. After this discovery, the police placed him under 24-hour surveillance. They also reviewed security footage from the trailer park where he lived and saw his red Volkswagen Jetta leaving the area just 15 minutes before Sierra left her home to go to the bus stop. The same vehicle was captured on surveillance footage in the area where Sierra was last seen on March 16th. The police brought Antolin in for questioning, but he claimed that after leaving his home on the day of Sierra's disappearance, he went fishing alone. With no witnesses or additional evidence to corroborate his story, the police asked him directly how his DNA could have been found on Sierra's belongings. Antolin's explanation was that he often pleasured himself in his car and used tissues to clean up afterward. He speculated that he might have thrown one of these tissues out the window, which could have ended up in Sierra's bag. However, the police had not disclosed the type of sample from which the DNA was extracted, so Antolin had incriminated himself by assuming it was related to something sexual. Naturally, the investigators did not believe his excuse. Several witnesses reported seeing a car matching the description of Antolin's near the bus stop at the time Sierra was believed to have disappeared. As a result, on April 7th, authorities obtained a search warrant for Antolin's vehicle. During the search, they found one of Sierra's hairs entangled in a rope in the trunk along with her fingerprints on the rear door handle. In parallel, the police began using cadaver dogs as they continued searching for Sierra, hoping to find any evidence that could assist in the investigation. Following the discoveries in his vehicle and 2 months of surveillance, on May 21, 2012, the police arrested Antolin for the abduction and suspected murder of Mae LaMar. The case gained national attention and was even featured on an episode of America's Most Wanted. To commemorate 1 year since Sierra's disappearance, the community of Morgan Hill organized a tribute on March 16, 2013. They released helium balloons in Sierra's favorite colors, each tied with a ribbon and notes containing messages of hope and love. Nearly a year later, on February 11, 2014, Antolin was formally charged. He pleaded not guilty. On Saturday, March 14, 2015, 3 years after Sierra's disappearance, her family made the incredibly difficult decision to officially end the search. For years, volunteers had conducted weekly searches, hoping to recover Sierra's body or remains. This effort became the longest ongoing search of its kind in the United States at the time. Although it was reported in September 2015 that the trial was set to begin on April 25 the following year, it faced multiple delays and didn't actually start until January 30, 2017. From the outset of the trial, the prosecutor warned the jury that the defense might argue Sierra had voluntarily run away from home. Without a body, murder weapon, or key witness, the prosecution's case relied heavily on forensic evidence, DNA samples, and circumstantial evidence. He told the jury that the evidence suggested Sierra had been bound, dragged, and placed in the trunk of Antolin's car. He also pointed out that a police officer noted a strong odor of urine on Sierra's jeans, which were found less than 4 miles from her bus stop. The discovery of the clothing, including underwear, indicated that the young girl's lifeless body was likely naked. The fact that the clothing was dirty with soil supported the theory that she had been dragged. The prosecutor also mentioned to the jury that during initial questioning, Antolin had voluntarily provided information about his sexual habits, even though no authorities had mentioned the specific type of DNA evidence found on Sierra's belongings. Sierra's mother, Marlene, took the stand to testify, speaking about her relationship with her daughter and recalling how, on the morning of March 16th, as they did every day, they had exchanged a kiss and an "I love you" before parting. She also confirmed that the clothing and other items found on the road belonged to Sierra. Next, Antolin's ex-girlfriend, who by the time of the trial had officially separated from the accused, testified for about 90 minutes. She claimed she could hardly remember any details about the morning when Sierra disappeared. During cross-examination, it was revealed that she had given inconsistent accounts regarding Antolin's whereabouts and other details over the years. She also admitted to fabricating part of her grand jury testimony, specifically about Antolin's particular method of folding and half-rolling his pants, a detail that was significant because it directly related to how Sierra's pants were found in her backpack along with the rest of her clothing. However, she told the jury that she had no way of knowing how Antolin folded his pants because he never did the laundry or put away clothes. Another key piece of evidence presented by the prosecution was a purchase Antolin allegedly made sometime before Sierra's disappearance. According to supermarket membership card records, Antolin had bought a turkey baster, a tool used for injecting sauce into meat or removing excess fat, as well as a jug of bleach. These items could be used to eliminate DNA evidence following a sexual assault. Unfortunately, the authorities were unable to recover any of these items from the accused's car or residence. The prosecutor questioned Antolin's ex about this, and she stated that she knew nothing about it. However, she noted that Antolin rarely went grocery shopping alone, especially not at midnight, the time when the purchase was recorded. She mentioned that if he had done so, her ex-partner would have mentioned buying household items. She also noted that shortly after Sierra's disappearance, Antolin and she, along with two friends, had gone to Fresno for a snowboarding trip, during which Antolin consumed cannabis. The turkey baster could have been used as a tool to make concentrated cannabis, as Antolin's lawyers later argued. The defense listed the main reasons why they believed Antolin was innocent. They pointed out that Sierra's body had never been found and questioned why her hair, found in their client's car, wasn't shown in an initial photograph but appeared later. The defense team even suggested to the jury that the driver of a brown car seen in the area where Sierra disappeared in March 2012 might be the real culprit. Although the defense was prohibited from mentioning to the jury the prior child molestation conviction that Sierra's father had served, the court documents presented by Antolin's lawyer argued that Sierra had run away because she lived in a broken home and was struggling in school. According to the defense, Sierra had moved to Morgan Hill less than a year before her disappearance and was unhappy. They also claimed that Sierra had confided in a friend about her plan to run away and had even shown her a suitcase packed with clothes. Some of Sierra's friends from Fremont testified before the jury, confirming her displeasure with the move to Morgan Hill but also expressing doubt that she would have run away voluntarily. Her friend Shannon told the court that on the day of her disappearance, Sierra had texted her saying she was excited to visit her hometown and pop some pills, referring to the narcotic known as ecstasy. The defense team argued that Sierra had been in contact with people involved in criminal activities and might have run away or been abducted by drug traffickers. However, Sierra's friends rejected this suggestion and agreed with the prosecution that her behavior and drug use were just typical teenage things. To counter the defense's claims of a possible connection between the accused and the teenager being mere coincidence, the prosecutor questioned Jeanette Kinner, a woman familiar with Antolin's social circles. Jeanette confirmed that she knew of at least one teenager who had attended school with Sierra but didn't realize the connection until after Sierra's disappearance. The defense also challenged the prosecution's assertions regarding Antolin's alleged attempts to kidnap 3 women from the parking lots of 2 supermarkets in separate incidents that took place in 2009, 3 years before Sierra went missing. The defense's primary argument was that none of the women had been able to identify Antolin in a lineup of suspects. Antolin's older sister then took the stand. She described to the jury how she and her brother had spent much of their childhood alone. She revealed that their father was in prison at the time of the trial, that he was an alcoholic who frequently beat their mother in front of them, and that he had sexually abused her from the age of 5 until she was 15. Regarding the DNA evidence presented by the prosecution, the defense told the jury that proper protocol had not been followed with the samples, and that the bag containing Sierra's clothes had been contaminated, thus compromising the genetic profile analysis. However, the prosecution emphasized that the evidence had been carefully collected and preserved. Antolin did not testify. On May 9, 2017, more than 5 years after Sierra's disappearance and following a 13-week trial, the jury deliberated for about a day and a half before notifying the judge that they had reached a unanimous verdict. Antolin Garcia Torres, then 26 years old, was found guilty of the kidnapping and murder of Sierra LaMar. He was also convicted on 3 counts of attempted kidnapping during the commission of a carjacking in relation to the 3 incidents from 2009. The judge sentenced him to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Additionally, he was required to register as a sex offender after the prosecution argued that sexual gratification was one of Antolin's primary motives for kidnapping and killing Sierra. In November 2017, Antolin's defense attorney attempted to secure a new trial, arguing that the presiding judge should have recused herself due to potential bias. However, the petition was denied by a San Francisco judge. In December 2020, Antolin refused to provide any information about Sierra LaMar's whereabouts in response to a handwritten letter sent by a journalist. Of the 4 questions posed to him, he only responded to the one regarding his innocence, reiterating that he was not guilty of Sierra's death.
Day after day, we are surrounded by the presence of criminals. We are spectators to the deepest darkness in human actions and the bizarre reality that someone's suffering can be a form of pleasure. As dedicated investigators of the criminal world, we're on a mission to uncover the most shocking crimes and get inside the minds of those who commit them. I am Luke, and today I bring you another unreal true crime. The Kathleen Alexandra Layana case. Guayaquil, the capital of the Guayas province, is one of the largest cities in Ecuador. Located on a peninsula by the Guayas River, it serves as the country's commercial hub. Known as the gateway to the Pacific beaches and the famous Galapagos Islands, Guayaquil is also a major port and center for imports and exports. It's the 2nd most populated city in Ecuador, after Quito, with a rough estimate of 2.7 million inhabitants. Approximately 400,000 of these residents live in Guasmo Sur, one of the informal neighborhoods in the southern central part of the city. Guasmo Sur is considered the poorest neighborhood in Guayaquil. It struggles with overpopulation, poverty, and frequent criminal activities. Most of its current inhabitants are migrants from rural areas who moved to this urban but isolated part of Guayaquil seeking better employment opportunities and an improved quality of life. The majority of the buildings in Guasmo Sur are made of blocks, yet some houses are constructed with wood, cardboard, and other common materials. The area was named Guasmo because of the once abundant tropical trees of the same name, which were later felled to pave the way for urban development and local industries. In 2018, 19-year-old Kathleen Alexandra Layana resided in Guasmo Sur. Her residence was owned by Ramiro Alta Morano. According to him, It wasn't profitable to rent out one of his ground floor spaces for businesses, as tenants frequently failed and returned the keys. As a result, he decided to remodel the commercial space into a residential apartment. The first tenants arrived on August 9, 2018. A family consisting of a mother and her 4 children, with Kathleen Layana being the oldest daughter. He lived on the upper floor of the same building. Relatives and neighbors of Kathleen Layana described her as a calm girl with no signs of violent tendencies. By October 2018, Kathleen was working because she had applied for a university spot, which she unfortunately did not secure. Less than 5 kilometers away from Guasmosur lies Isla Trinitaria, an area crisscrossed by the perimeter road and also plagued with security issues. Isla Trinitaria has a predominantly Afro-descendant population, with many of their homes being built on illegally acquired land and constructed with cement and cane. In Isla Trinitaria, 21-year-old Veronica Jasmine Silva Ruiz lived in the southern part of the main port. Veronica Silva was studying systems engineering at the University of Guayaquil and was about to begin her 2nd semester. She lived with her parents and siblings, being the youngest daughter of Alberto Silva and Maria Ruiz. Many claim that Veronica and Kathleen Layana had been friends since school days, but Veronica's mother was unaware of this relationship and did not know Kathleen. However, it's confirmed that both young women shared 2 things in common. They were neighbors and both knew Irba Orks, a 20-year-old man. Maria Ruiz, Veronica's mother, also didn't know about the alleged romantic relationship her daughter had with Jer, who had also been Kathleen Layana's romantic partner. On the morning of Tuesday, October 2, 2018, Veronica left her home early. By 9 a.m., she bid her parents farewell, heading to the University of Guayaquil. That was the last time they saw her alive. Her mother mentioned that Veronica went to the university without breakfast as she needed to submit a document and intended to return home quickly for lunch. Her father mentioned expecting her home around 11 a.m. When they didn't hear from her, her disappearance was reported to the prosecutor's office on the morning of Wednesday, October 3, 2018. 34 hours after Veronica's departure, her elder sister Rudy received a mysterious friend request on Facebook. A 20-year-old man identified himself as Veronica's boyfriend, claiming he knew of Veronica's whereabouts since his ex-mother-in-law had shown him some of her personal belongings. These items were found in an apartment in Guasmosur, which belonged to Kathleen Layana. Rudy informed her parents about this Facebook conversation, and they went to the flagrancy unit of the state prosecutor's office that Wednesday night to report the information. Around 7 p.m., investigators from the National Department of Crimes Against Life, Violent Deaths, Disappearances, Extortion, and Kidnapping confirmed that the body they had discovered dismembered at 2 p.m. that same day matched the family's descriptions. Initially, it was believed that Veronica never went to the university that day, but had been lured to Kathleen Layana's apartment, located 6 blocks from where they found Veronica's dismembered body. Layana allegedly called Veronica to gossip about her boyfriend, who had previously been Layana's partner and, according to Layana, was still secretly seeing her. Later, it was confirmed that Veronica did attend the university on the morning of October 2, 2018, as she had told her parents. This account was corroborated by a university professor and later shared with agents from the National Department of Crimes Against Life, Violent Deaths, Disappearances, Extortion, and Kidnapping when they were investigating the disappearance. Veronica Silva was last seen at the university with a young woman believed to be Kathleen Layana and a young man. Their identities could not be confirmed as the faculty's security cameras were offline. By the afternoon of Wednesday, October 13, 2018, Veronica Silva's body was discovered inside 2 black bags placed within plastic boxes on a tricycle in Guasmosur. Bystanders, upon discovering the human remains, alerted the authorities. The tricycle was seized for investigation. At 10:30 p.m. on Wednesday, October 3, Kathleen Leana confessed to the murder. "I cut her in half," she informed the police. Her account of the crime was harrowing. Kathleen claimed she had invited Veronica Silva to her home on Tuesday, October 2, under the pretext of gossip. In reality, she wanted to confront her about the relationship Veronica allegedly had with Kathleen's ex-boyfriend. The two were supposedly still seeing each other secretly, and he had proposed to Veronica. When Veronica tried to leave, Kathleen threatened her with a knife. Kathleen tied Veronica's arms behind her back with plastic and began strangling her with an electrical cord. According to Kathleen, Veronica pleaded to be let go. There were moments Kathleen would relent, only to tighten the cord again. At some point, Veronica attempted to grab a knife, resulting in a struggle on the floor where Kathleen eventually strangled Veronica to death. After the murder, Kathleen tried to dismember the body with a kitchen knife but couldn't sever the head. She attempted to burn the face with alcohol, succeeding only in burning Veronica's hair and face. With family due home soon, Kathleen hid the body beneath her bed, covering it with stuffed animals and sheets. Disturbingly, she slept that night with Veronica's body still under the bed. On Wednesday, October 3, 2018, Kathleen decided to incinerate the body but failed. She placed the body parts in bags and sought out her uncle, Jose Rodriguez, to borrow his work tricycle. Initially hesitant, he eventually lent it to her. When she delayed returning it, he went to look for her, but she was nowhere to be found. Kathleen later told him the tricycle had been stolen, but he discovered from colleagues that the police had confiscated it due to its involvement in a death. Kathleen also admitted to asking a passerby for help loading the heavy bags onto the tricycle. After placing Veronica's remains on the tricycle, Kathleen paid a minor cousin $5 to help her push the tricycle towards a garbage dump, with the boy unaware of the gruesome contents within the bags. 5 blocks away from Kathleen's house, one of the bags fell off the tricycle. Panicking, Kathleen fled when a security guard approached her for littering. Ramiro, the owner of the building where the murder occurred, reported never hearing any alarming noises or cries from upstairs. He only noticed a strong scent, similar to chicken blood. Considering that chickens are frequently slaughtered in the area, he dismissed the smell, not thinking it came from a human body or his own building. In fact, he even considered confronting them about a potential spill, but his wife advised against it. That night, over 10 police officers raided his house. Upon surrendering to the police, Kathleen Leana claimed she acted alone. However, investigators were suspicious there might be other accomplices. Veronica's mother, Maria Ruiz, also doubted Kathleen's solitary involvement, pointing out her daughter's height and strength. Given Kathleen's story, the primary theory presented by the National Department of Crimes Against Life, violent deaths, disappearances, extortion, and kidnapping, was that of a crime of passion stemming from jealousy. Specifically, it was believed to revolve around a presumed love triangle involving Veronica Silva, Kathleen Leana, and Jair Alexander. It's noteworthy that Veronica's mother had never heard of these individuals before. Later, Kathleen changed her account, implicating Jair in the crime. She alleged that Jair was prostituting them via a website and participated in Veronica's murder by holding the electrical cord used for strangulation. According to the attorney representing Veronica's family, the young university student was murdered for refusing to engage in prostitution via a website supposedly run by Jair. In September 2019, Kathleen Leana was sentenced to 34 years and 8 months in prison for the murder and dismemberment of Veronica Silva in October 2018. Kathleen's defense appealed the ruling, considering it unjust. In October 2020, an appeal hearing was held, conducted virtually due to the coronavirus pandemic. The presiding judge denied the defense's claims, who now argued Kathleen had only discarded the body, not committed the murder. The verdict against Kathleen LaMar included a fine of 1,000 basic salaries to the state and a $20,000 compensation to the victim's mother. During a hearing at the prosecutor's General State Flagrancy Unit, Kathleen LaMar's defense requested a psychological evaluation for their client and proposed for transfer to a psychological care institution instead of the Female Social Rehabilitation Center where she had been sent. The forensic clinical psychologist stated that Kathleen might exhibit psychopathic traits and signs of schizophrenia. However, since she acted with clear intent and conscience, she wasn't exempt from legal responsibility. She had meticulously planned everything, showing premeditation and malice when committing the crime. Before becoming the center of attention, LaMar told the public prosecutor's office that he had known Kathleen LaMar for 3 years and had a romantic relationship with her for 2 years. He mentioned ending the relationship due to her possessive nature, recalling an instance where she threatened him with scissors, warning him not to message any female friends. LaMar also reported that on Wednesday, October 3, 2018, Kathleen called him asking if he had a machete. When he inquired about its purpose, she claimed it was to clear some shrubs outside her house. Later that afternoon, he received a message from Kathleen saying she needed to leave as someone was looking to kill her. This was the account LaMar shared with the public prosecutor before becoming a prime suspect himself. Not long after, the police sought him out for questioning. Veronica Silva's mother acknowledged that while nothing could bring her daughter back, she took solace in knowing that her daughter's killer would serve a significant sentence for the heinous act. To her, justice had been served. She emphasized the need to apprehend LaMar, who was on the run, and also who she believed also had a hand in her daughter's murder. On October 6, 2018, Veronica Silva's funeral was held. Her head was adorned with a white lace crown, making her look like a sleeping maiden. During the funeral, the song Amor Eterno by Juan Gabriel played. Her mother was inconsolable, speaking to Veronica through the glass of the casket, pleading for her to look back. Maria's grief was palpable, screaming as she refused to let go of her daughter. It was a loss she would never overcome, forever scarring her life. Maria repeatedly expressed that her daughter, a calm and peaceful young woman, didn't deserve such a brutal, horrific end. After all, who does? In September 2021, the National Police confirmed the arrest of LaMar Alexander Boorks Bastidas. He is believed to be the second individual involved in the murder of his girlfriend. And there, dear viewer, concludes today's criminal tale. Remember to subscribe and hit like to show your appreciation. Good night, and this was another episode of Crime Analysis Central. Until next time. Day after day, we are surrounded by the presence of criminals. We are spectators to the deepest darkness in human actions and the bizarre reality that someone's suffering can be a form of pleasure. As dedicated investigators of the criminal world, we're on a mission to uncover the most shocking crimes and get inside the minds of those who commit them. I am Luke, and today I bring you another unreal true crime. The sad case of Melanie Stacy Amaya. Melanie Stacy Amaya was born on February 22, 2002, in the municipality of San Rafael, in the department of Antioquia, Colombia. Her parents, William Amaya and Maria Leon, were overjoyed at her birth despite being very young. They had been planning to have a daughter, and their wish was finally fulfilled. Later, the family grew with the arrival of another girl, Natalie. The two sisters got along very well and played together all the time. From her childhood, Melanie showed a cheerful and fun personality. Her smile was her main feature, and she was also very flirtatious, often asking her mother for makeup to paint her dolls. Despite not having many resources, her parents always managed to give her everything she needed. She was one of the best students in school, with excellent grades. Over the years, Melanie developed a very strong character. She was proud and always wanted to be right about everything. However, this did not prevent her from having an excellent relationship with her mother. Whenever they fought, they would reconcile, share everything, and support each other. When Melanie entered adolescence, her parents separated on good terms. Shortly after, Maria met Ruben Morales, and they became a couple. Later, they decided to move in together. Both Melanie and her sister went with them, settling in the Manrique neighborhood in Medellin. Their relationship with their stepfather was excellent. They considered him their second father. Ruben respected their bond with William, always reminding them that he was there to help raise them, but did not want them to stop seeing their biological father. By the time she turned 16, Melanie was a very pretty young woman who liked to dress up and go out partying. She had many friends who held her in high esteem. It was at this time that she discovered her passion: electronic music. She decided she wanted to be a DJ, and her family supported her in everything, beginning to save money to buy her a console. They were sure that whatever she did would be excellent, as she was extremely intelligent. However, Melanie never got to fulfill her dreams. On Thursday, June 28, 2018, Melanie was getting ready to go to the birthday party of Isaac, her best friend. Although they had celebrated the week before, they were ready for another party. The party was to be held at a nightclub located on Carrera 45, an area known for its nightlife. When she finished getting ready, she told her mother that she was leaving. Her mother asked her to take care and not to return too late. They hugged, and Melanie got into her Uber heading to the club, but she never arrived. Isaac arrived at the nightclub and noticed his friend's absence. The techno music was very loud, and the place was crowded. He began to look for her everywhere. When he couldn't find her, he started sending her messages, but Melanie didn't respond. Isaac thought she might be with Maria Londoño, her neighbor and closest friend, and decided to wait until the next day and celebrated his birthday as usual. Maria woke up at 7 in the morning and noticed that her daughter had not returned. Her room was just as she had left it the night before while getting ready. Worried, Maria began to call her phone, but it was out of service. She thought it might be out of battery and that Melanie might be at a friend's house, but it seemed strange that she had not tried to communicate with her. Maria decided to call Isaac, who told her that Melanie had never arrived at the nightclub and might be with a friend. Maria contacted all of her daughter's acquaintances, but there were no signs of her, and no one knew her whereabouts. Finally, she spoke to some friends who said that Melanie had arrived at the club's door, but did not enter, thinking she might have gone to another party. Completely desperate, Maria called her ex-husband and gave him the terrible news. He tried to calm her, saying it was still early, and that Melanie might be sleeping at someone's house. But the afternoon came, and Melanie did not appear. Her parents tried to report her disappearance at the police station, but since it was a holiday, they were not taken seriously and were told to wait longer. Trying to stay composed, her parents thought she might have gone to a farm, probably celebrating the long weekend, likely with no cell phone signal, and that's why she hadn't communicated with them. But deep down, they knew that wasn't true. They sensed that something bad was happening. Maria, Ruben, and William began their own search, covering all the places where they thought Melanie could be. from the houses of her acquaintances to parks and the streets of the nightclubs she frequented. After an initial search, they decided to post flyers all over the city with a detailed description of the young girl, including a photograph that Melanie had taken the night she disappeared. She was seen wearing a short blouse, light blue jeans, and white sneakers. Her physical characteristics were described as slender, short in height, with black hair, brown eyes, and several tattoos: a rose on her chest, a moon on her forearm, and wings on her back. Her most distinctive tattoos were a fish on her right leg, covering a motorcycle burn, and one under her clavicle that said, "Crazy Life." She also had a belly button piercing and a peritonitis scar on her abdomen, making her easily recognizable. While distributing the flyers to pedestrians and police officers on the street, they made it clear they were utterly desperate and that the official search should start as soon as possible. The news spread quickly, and social media was flooded with images of Melanie. The weekend passed terribly. Maria couldn't sleep, constantly thinking about her daughter. Finally, early on Monday, Maria went to the police station to report her daughter missing. The search was categorized as urgent due to Melanie being a minor. Officers checked hospitals and morgues to see if anyone named Melanie or matching her physical characteristics had been admitted, but they found no trace of her. Melanie's parents clung to the hope of finding her alive, but the days became longer and her absence more worrying. Then, the first lead emerged. A witness approached the police station to give a statement, saying they had seen Melanie on the night of June 28 near the El Palmar soccer field. They noted that the young woman was dirty and beaten, as if she had fallen, and was accompanied by a young man wearing loose clothes, a cap, and large sports shoes. While this testimony contributed to the search, the situation remained complicated. The description of the boy with Melanie was very general, as most of her friends dressed that way. However, Maria thought of one person, Miguel Naranjo, her daughter's ex-boyfriend. The 18-year-old had ended his relationship with Melanie 3 months earlier on bad terms. Maria asked her younger daughter to contact him. Miguel claimed to know nothing about Melanie's whereabouts, emphasizing that he hadn't seen her for weeks. He then expressed great concern, saying he would be devastated if something happened to her, as he still cared for her deeply. However, days later, more testimonies contradicted Miguel's statements, with all witnesses saying they saw them together at a party that night, and that he was very drunk. Following these declarations, the prosecutor's office began to consider Miguel the main suspect in Melanie's disappearance. They obtained a warrant to search his house, but they found no trace of Melanie, leaving them back where they started, without the slightest idea of the girl's whereabouts. On July 5 of the same year, Maria woke up in anguish, unable to believe that her daughter was still missing. She prayed to God to bring her back, alive or dead, as she couldn't stand the uncertainty anymore. Her prayers were answered, but not in a good way. That same day, Maria received a call from an unknown number. On the other end of the line, a voice told her to stop searching for her daughter because she was already in another world and buried in a place called El Calvario. Without allowing for more questions, the caller asked Maria not to reveal their identity to the police, as they had not spoken earlier due to fear. After the call ended, Maria quickly headed to the police station. Along with her husband and 2 officers, they set out towards the mountain, and she also notified everyone she knew to help with the search. They arrived at El Granizal neighborhood of Medellin, where the mountain was located. The territory was large, with many entrances and full of bushes. To reach the hill, they had to climb many steep stairs and pass through squatter houses, which was extremely dangerous. They decided to split into several groups to cover the area more quickly. Ruben went towards an area full of bushes, behind one of the houses. The ground was full of large footprints, as if someone had been dragged. He followed the trail and noticed a site with many flies buzzing around and a penetrating odor. He grabbed a stick and began moving the rocks on the ground. When he turned over one of them, he saw something terrible, a human head. He immediately called the police officers who were searching nearby. At first, they thought it could be an animal, as animals were often dumped in that area. They continued removing stones and spotted blood. Finally, they could clearly see the face, which was completely disfigured, but it was evident that it belonged to a human body. Maria couldn't stop crying, not wanting it to be her daughter. Natalie thought it might be another girl who had also been missing for some time. The whole family was in denial. The officers notified the forensic medicine services. When they were able to unearth the body, all doubts were cleared. Despite the mutilation, they could discern the tattoo on the girl's chest. The body was completely unclothed, with the mouth open and filled with dirt, all teeth broken, and one of the eyes dislodged. There was also something very strange. The person who buried her had thrown calcium oxide over her. The body was exhumed by the criminalistics and transferred to the Institute of Legal Medicine and Forensic Sciences. After a few hours, experts confirmed that it was none other than Melanie. Although her body showed signs of all types of violence, the cause of death was mechanical asphyxia. Due to the advanced state of decomposition, it could not be determined if the young woman had been sexually abused, but they could confirm that she had been severely mistreated. Her family was inconsolable. There was no longer any hope of finding her alive, but they could still find the terrible person who had committed the sinister crime. The media published the news of the discovery, and all viewers' eyes turned to Ruben, believing that the fact he had found the body, while alone, made him a possible suspect. However, the community had other opinions. They knew Melanie had no enemies, but had an idea of who might want to harm her. Everyone was aware that her relationship with Miguel had not ended well, and that he was a rather violent young man. Meanwhile, Miguel continued sending messages to Melanie's relatives, saying he was very distressed by the young woman's loss and had done everything possible to find her. But no one believed him anymore, and an angry mob of neighbors showed up at his home to lynch him. The police took advantage of this event to take him to the police station, claiming they were protecting him, but the real objective was to interrogate him. His statement was quick. He said he was innocent and seemed very sure of his words. As there was no evidence against him, they had to let him go. Almost simultaneously, Ruben was cleared of any involvement in the case. There was no evidence suggesting he had anything to do with his stepdaughter's murder. Even with Miguel as the main suspect, investigators began to delve into the relationship he had with Melanie. According to sources close to the young woman, the couple met in 2016 when she was 14 and he was 17. Melanie organized a party with her best friends and hired a DJ, who was Miguel. She was enchanted by him, and they began dating that same week, later becoming official. They went everywhere together, even on outings with friends. Everyone liked Miguel. They noticed he was loving with Melanie and cared for her deeply. Over the months, the young man started spending more and more time at her house, becoming an integral part of the family. Maria knew that Miguel had problems with his mother. He had told her that she often beat him and sometimes left him without food. Melanie's family cared for him so much that they decided to take him into their home as if he were another son. In the first months of living together, everything was rosy, and they were closer than ever. However, over time, the relationship between the two teenagers began to crumble. They argued constantly, and Miguel was extremely bothered by Melanie's liking for dressing up flirtatiously. She was so affected that she decided to leave school and started doing something she had never done before: consuming substances. Maria took a while to realize this and confronted her daughter. Melanie told her she had only done it a few times, always in Miguel's company. This is how Mijel lost all the trust and respect of the family, and from then on, the situation only worsened. The fights became violent and physical. Mijel constantly hit Melanie, leaving marks on her neck and arms. One day, he beat her so severely that he stained the entire room with blood. Maria tried to help her daughter, but Melanie asked her not to interfere in their relationship and pleaded to continue living together. Their friends were also worried. They noticed how her spirit was fading. They saw her cry every day and advised her to leave him. After 2 years of ups and downs, on May 23, 2018, the young couple had their last violent fight. Melanie decided to definitively leave Mijel and threw him out of her house, but he did not accept this and began to stalk and follow her everywhere. Ruben decided to go to the prosecutor's office to report that his stepdaughter was in danger and request a restraining order. But sadly, this measure was never carried out. In the following months, Mijel continued to seek Melanie, swearing that if she gave him another chance, he would do things differently, but she never agreed. And so, without any help from the police, the young woman tried to continue with her life as normally as possible until the terrible incident on June 28. After gathering all possible testimonies about the young couple's relationship, the officers investigated Mijel's criminal history. They discovered that despite his young age, he already had reports of domestic abuse. Records indicated he had beaten his mother and siblings. They also found the report Ruben had filed months earlier and the testimony of a friend of Melanie's. This young man declared that Mijel had said if he found out she was with someone else, he would kill her, but that wasn't the most shocking part. The person who had called Maria decided to reveal their identity. It was a relative of Mijel's who lived with him in a residence, very close to where Melanie's body was found. The relative recounted that on the night of June 29, they saw Mijel arrive at the house around midnight with a shovel and muddy shoes. Minutes later, he started a fire and began burning clothes and makeup, then took a long shower. With all the evidence gathered, on July 10 of that year, the agents obtained an arrest warrant against Mijel. He voluntarily presented himself at the police and was charged with aggravated femicide. He did not accept the charges and declared himself innocent, with a strange smile on his face. After 6 months of delaying the judicial process, Mijel decided to make a plea deal, accepting the charges that identified him as the author of the crime in exchange for a reduced sentence. Once the judges agreed, he began to recount the last hours of the young woman's life. On June 28, 2018, Mijel saw Melanie at the disco where Isaac's birthday party would be held. He approached to talk to her, but quickly noticed she was exchanging messages with another boy. This triggered uncontrollable jealousy in him. He couldn't believe she already had another man. They began a heated argument, which turned violent. He hit her hard and threw her to the ground. Then they went to a football field, where the dispute continued. At some point, he grabbed her by the neck and strangled her until she died. At that moment, he decided to hit her body. He then returned home to burn her clothes and belongings. In his statement, Mijel excused himself by saying he had acted under the influence of drugs. The account was quite imprecise. Mijel did not want to clarify where he killed Melanie or how he hid the body. The agents assumed that after taking her to the sports complex, he persuaded her to talk alone near where he buried her. They only had 2 certainties. Mijel was guilty of femicide, and his motive for committing the crime had been jealousy and obsession. Psychological analyses showed that he was an aggressive, possessive person with an explosive character. However, they also proved that he was fully aware of his actions when he committed the crime, so he had to face trial. On Friday, January 18, 2019, almost 7 months after the young woman's murder, the first hearing was held. Mijel was found guilty of aggravated femicide and sentenced to 34 years and 8 months in prison. After hearing the jury's decision, he apologized to Melanie's family and society and was transferred to a prison in Medellin. While the family was satisfied with the verdict, they all said they would never forgive him. After the trial, they united more than ever. The young woman's biological father thanked everyone on his Facebook account for the support they had given him during the process. He said that although the sentence would not bring his daughter back, it at least set an example that such cases do not always go unpunished. However, there is a reality. The authorities had been alerted about Miguel's dangerousness. If they had followed through with the restraining order, Melanie might still be alive. And that's the end of today's case. As always, I appreciate your support for my work. If you subscribe, like, and share this video, it will help me continue creating content. This was another episode of Unreal True Crime. See you soon. Day after day, we are surrounded by the presence of criminals. We are spectators to the deepest darkness in human actions and the bizarre reality that someone's suffering can be a form of pleasure. As dedicated investigators of the criminal world, we're on a mission to uncover the most shocking crimes and get inside the minds of those who commit them. I am Luke, and today I bring you another Unreal True Crime. The horrible case of Cindy James. Cindy James was born on June 12, 1944, the daughter of Otto and Matilda. Her original name was Cynthia Elizabeth Hack, but she later changed it to Cindy James for reasons that will become apparent. Her father, a retired colonel from the Canadian Air Force, and her mother, housewife, raised Cindy and her 5 siblings in a home known for its kindness, generosity, and friendliness. Cindy, characterized by her special nature and desire to help others, pursued a career in nursing. During this period, her father had re-enlisted with the Air Force and relocated the family to France, where she visited them during holidays. During this time, in letters to her family, Cindy occasionally referred to an unnamed intern she had met during her studies. She claimed that the two had at one point been engaged, and that, after finding he had terminal cancer, the man committed suicide while the couple were on a skiing trip. None of her parents or siblings, however, ever met the man, and Cindy did not name him. In the summer of 1965, Cindy met Roy Makepeace, a South African psychiatrist 18 years her senior. The two married on December 9, 1966, the same year she graduated from nursing school. Despite the age difference, their marriage initially seemed harmonious, and they began their life together with Cindy working as a nurse. In 1975, Cindy's career took a significant turn when she became the coordinator of a day center for minors with behavioral issues. Her dedication and passion for her work were evident during her 12-year tenure at the center. Cindy's commitment to the children was deeply appreciated by their parents, who recognized her profound impact and devotion. A pivotal moment in Cindy's life occurred after these 12 years when she decided to seek change. She left her job at the day center and accepted a nursing position at Richmond Hospital. Around the same time, Cindy and Roy's marriage ended in divorce. This marked a complete transformation in Cindy's life. She moved out of the house she shared with Roy, found a new place to live, adopted a pet, and immersed herself in work to stay occupied. This busy new lifestyle was Cindy's way of coping with the changes and challenges following her divorce. It's not clear why she divorced Roy. What has been found is that at least on 2 or 3 occasions, Roy had hit Cindy, so perhaps the reason she divorced was that he mistreated her. Despite this, it is known that Cindy and her ex-husband, Roy, claimed to have divorced on amicable terms, even though he had physically assaulted her several times. They maintained that they still had a good relationship and got along well. However, 4 months after her divorce and the beginning of her new life, Cindy's nightmare commenced. In October 1982, Cindy began receiving numerous unsettling phone calls at her home. Often, these calls were met with silence, as if no one was on the other end, or she would hear faint sounds like breathing or mumbling, but could not discern any clear message. This pattern persisted, suggesting that it was not an error but an intentional act to intimidate her. The calls were made from an untraceable number, leaving Cindy in the dark about the identity of the caller. On one occasion, while at home with friends, Cindy answered the phone only to hear the familiar, indiscernible noises. After hanging up, she noticed that the living room curtains, which she had previously closed, were now open. Startled, she closed the curtains and blinds, but the phone rang again. This time, the caller ominously remarked, "It's silly for you to hide. I know you're in the living room." This incident epitomized the terrifying reality Cindy faced daily, feeling watched yet unable to see her observer. The harassment escalated as Cindy began receiving bizarre letters in her mail. These letters, composed of newspaper clippings arranged to form threatening messages, conveyed ominous sentiments like "Soon, Cindy, soon," and "You're dead." Additionally, some letters contained violent imagery, depicting assaulted women or a person brandishing a knife near a woman's image. Despite the palpable threat these letters posed, Cindy had no clue about their origin and had never encountered the sender. Fearing for her safety and unsure of what to do, Cindy sought advice from her parents and ex-husband Roy. Both her parents and Roy urged her to contact the police and file a formal complaint, which Cindy did on October 12, 1982. The police, in their investigation, interviewed Cindy's friends and family to ascertain if anyone bore a grudge against her or knew of someone who might wish her harm. However, their efforts yielded no leads. Cindy, known for her compassionate and helpful nature as a nurse devoted to aiding people and children, was widely regarded as a genuinely kind and generous individual. This raised the question, who would want to harm someone like Cindy? The police were unable to identify anyone who wished to harm Cindy James. Contrary to expectations that the situation would resolve after her complaint, the harassment persisted. Just 3 days later, while Cindy was in her kitchen, a brick shattered her window. Understandably alarmed, Cindy immediately contacted the police. On their arrival, officers conducted a thorough search of the house, yard, the alley behind the house, and the paths between the neighboring houses. Despite their efforts, they found no evidence of suspicious activity or clues to the perpetrator's identity. No witnesses had seen anyone, leaving the police with no leads. It seemed as though Cindy was being attacked by an unseen force. A week later, as Cindy prepared for bed, she encountered another disturbing scene. In her bedroom, she found her pillow slashed as if someone had attacked it with a knife. Cindy again called the police, who this time dispatched a different officer, Patrick McBride, to investigate. He thoroughly examined the surroundings and spoke with Cindy. After their discussion, he expressed his belief that Roy, Cindy's ex-husband, was responsible for the attacks. Cindy was skeptical, finding it hard to believe, especially since Roy had advised her to contact the police. Nevertheless, Pat was convinced that Roy was the culprit. To enhance Cindy's safety, Pat installed locks on all the doors and set up detectors in her house. He committed to checking on her daily and did so for nearly a month. During this time, Pat and Cindy grew close, eventually starting a romantic relationship. While Pat lived with Cindy, the harassment ceased. However, Pat remained vigilant, continuing to monitor the house's surroundings. One day, he encountered Roy near the back of the house and confronted him. Roy explained that he was concerned for Cindy's safety and was checking to ensure she was not in danger from her stalker. Pat, however, doubted Roy's explanation and maintained his suspicion that Roy was the one harassing Cindy. After a month, Cindy decided to end her cohabitation with Pat, though their relationship did not immediately dissolve. Once Pat left, the tranquility that had settled during his stay vanished, and the unsettling phone calls, letters, and noises resumed, marking the return of Cindy's nightmare. On one occasion, Cindy arrived home to a horrifying scene: 3 dead cats inside her house, accompanied by a chilling note stating, "You're next." In an effort to enhance her security, Cindy installed lights on her porch to potentially spot any intruders. However, she frequently found her porch lights and phone line broken. Despite repeatedly reporting these incidents to the police, their investigations yielded no evidence. There was no sign that anyone besides Cindy had been in or around the house. Not even footprints were found. As a result, the police decided to tap her phone in hopes of tracking the calls, but the brief duration of the calls hindered their ability to trace the caller's location. After some time, Cindy experienced her first physical attack. She had invited her close friend Agnes for a girls' night at her home. When Agnes arrived and noticed the house was dark, she suspected something was amiss. After attempting to reach Cindy without success, Agnes entered the house and found Cindy lying on the floor, unconscious, with her hands tied behind her back and a pair of nylon stockings wrapped tightly around her neck. Agnes quickly removed the stockings, allowing Cindy to regain consciousness. Upon waking, Cindy could not recall the full extent of the attack. She remembered needing something from her garage, which required her to go outside, as there was no direct access from inside the house. It was during this moment that she was attacked from behind and strangled with the stockings. The only detail Cindy could remember about her attacker was that they wore white sneakers, a common and non-distinctive feature. Realizing her life could not continue in this manner, Cindy decided to make a radical change. She altered her appearance, dyed her hair, and chose to move out of her current residence, changing her last name from Hack to James. This decision led her to return to the house she had previously shared with her ex-husband, who offered her the place to live while he moved elsewhere. Although Roy's gesture appeared helpful, the circumstances surrounding it raised suspicions. After relocating to her former home, she continued to discover unsettling items on her porch, such as piles of raw meat accompanied by threatening notes declaring, "You're mixed," and "You are dead meat." These notes, crafted from newspaper clippings, reappeared relentlessly, along with the resumption of mysterious phone calls, now directed to her new number at Roy's house. Cindy persistently contacted the police regarding these incidents, and they responded each time. However, the officers were unable to find any physical evidence or signs of anyone else's presence besides Cindy's. This lack of evidence led the police to grow skeptical about her claims, suspecting that she might be fabricating the events. A grave concern since police protection depends on the credibility of the victim. Cindy had been enduring this harassment for almost 7 years, facing different forms of torment daily. Throughout these 7 years, the police, repeatedly visiting her property and finding no leads, started to feel worn out by the case. Realizing the diminishing attention and belief from the police, Cindy decided to hire a private detective. The detective installed special motion-activated lights on her porch, designed to illuminate the area whenever someone approached. These lights were strategically placed to avoid tampering, as previous outdoor lights had been repeatedly broken. He also provided Cindy with a walkie-talkie equipped with a panic button, enabling her to alert him, the authorities, and paramedics in case of an emergency. This device also allowed him to listen in on Cindy's surroundings, offering a way to monitor her safety. 2 days after receiving the walkie-talkie, Cindy informed the detective of her intention to walk her dog, leaving the device at home. Upon her return, the detective heard through the walkie-talkie that she had entered the house. However, shortly afterward, he detected unusual noises, suggesting someone else was present with Cindy. Faced with the dilemma of potentially alerting the intruder by speaking, he chose to drive to Cindy's house in an attempt to catch the individual in the act. On his arrival at Cindy James' house, he found a dire situation. Opening the door, he discovered Cindy lying unconscious on the floor with a dagger embedded in her hand. Between her hand and the dagger was a note, and around her neck were black nylon stockings, as if someone had attempted to strangle her. He immediately assisted Cindy, called for paramedics, and she was swiftly taken to the hospital. Still alive. The note reading "You're dead meat" was particularly noteworthy as it was handwritten, suggesting the possibility of obtaining fingerprints or analyzing the handwriting for clues. At the hospital, doctors noticed a syringe mark on Cindy's arm, indicating she had been injected with a sedative. When Cindy regained consciousness, she was questioned about any recollections of her attacker or the incident. Unfortunately, her memory was blank. She could only recall entering her house after walking her dog and being attacked from behind. Following the injection, her memory ceased, and she lost consciousness. Frustratingly, the police did not pursue any potential leads from the incident. They neglected to analyze the note for DNA or fingerprints, nor did they examine the dagger for any forensic evidence. Despite the presence of potential clues, the police remained convinced that Cindy was self-inflicting these wounds and orchestrating the entire scenario for attention. The private detective disagreed with the police's assessment and believed Cindy was not responsible for her own plight. Considering Cindy's history of being harassed for 7 years, he found it implausible that she would inflict such harm on herself, particularly in such a violent manner as her last attack. Resolute in finding the truth, he decided to explore the possibility of hypnosis, a common investigative technique in the 70s and 80s, to uncover any repressed memories Cindy might have of her assailant. However, the hypnosis session was unsuccessful, leaving Cindy's memory of the attack as elusive as ever. The possibility that Cindy's ex-partner, a psychiatrist, might have played a role in her amnesia was considered. Given his professional background, he could have had the knowledge and means to manipulate Cindy's memory using drugs or hypnotherapy. This theory, while speculative, raised questions about the extent of his involvement in her ordeal and the possibility of his using his expertise to conceal his actions. Despite the hypnosis session failing to unlock any memories for Cindy James, the police proceeded to administer a polygraph test. At the time, the polygraph was a widely used investigative tool, despite its reliability being questionable today. It is understood that a person who firmly believes in their version of events can pass a polygraph test. Cindy underwent the test and passed, indicating she was not lying according to the polygraph results. However, the police interpreted this outcome as Cindy being too traumatized to provide reliable results. This interpretation was in stark contrast to their earlier stance, where they believed Cindy was fabricating the events for attention, highlighting a contradiction in their approach and a reluctance to further investigate the case. Despite the police's skepticism, they decided to re-interview Roy, Cindy's ex-husband, and a prime suspect due to his background as a psychiatrist and access to medications and knowledge that could be used to harm Cindy. However, Roy denied any involvement. He too passed a polygraph test, which further complicated the investigation. The police's interest in the case persisted, driven by the curiosity surrounding the unexplained events occurring around Cindy. To monitor the situation, the police discreetly stationed a patrol car near Cindy's house for a week. During this period, No unusual incidents were reported. It was on December 11, 1985, that Cindy was found in a critical state. She was unconscious, with a black nylon stocking tied around her neck and a puncture mark on her arm from an injection. Cindy was physically battered and bore cuts on her body, but was alive. Taken to the hospital, she again had no memory of the attack upon regaining consciousness. After being discharged, Cindy, understandably frightened, invited her friend Agnes and Agnes' husband to stay at her house. That night, they reported hearing strange noises in the basement. Upon investigation, they discovered a fire in the basement. Agnes' husband noticed a person outside the house, not on the property but nearby, and looking towards the house. The identity of this person remained unknown due to the darkness and the distance. When they attempted to call for help, they discovered the phone line was cut, prompting Agnes' husband to seek assistance from neighbors. The firefighters were called and successfully extinguished the fire. After the fire incident in Cindy James' basement, the police conducted a thorough examination of her house, but found no evidence, such as footprints or any other signs of an intruder. Consequently, they concluded that Cindy was the one who started the fire. Due to their belief that Cindy was self-inflicting harm and the potential danger it posed, the police recommended she be admitted to a psychiatric institution. Feeling overwhelmed and uncertain about her situation, Cindy agreed to the hospitalization and spent the next 10 weeks in a psychiatric facility. On her release from the hospital, Cindy realized the importance of sharing her experiences and suspicions to shed light on the ongoing nightmare. She gathered her friends, family, and the police to disclose information she had previously withheld. Cindy revealed that during one of the attacks, the assailant had threatened to harm her family if she ever disclosed her beliefs about the identity of her attacker. She expressed a firm conviction that her ex-husband was the stalker. The police, prompted by Cindy's revelation, interrogated Roy once more. Despite Cindy's accusations, Roy maintained his innocence, asserting that he had always supported her, even advising her to contact the police and offering her a place to stay. To bolster his claim, Roy presented a recording he claimed to have captured on the answering machine at the house where Cindy was living, which was previously their shared home. The recording featured a female voice, suggesting that a woman, not Roy, was harassing Cindy. The police's response to Roy's evidence and Cindy's accusations was disheartening. They seemed more inclined to believe that Cindy was fabricating the entire situation rather than pursuing leads that could reveal the true perpetrator. This approach led to a troubling scenario where the police favored Roy's narrative over Cindy's and hastily dismissed her claims. Roy further complicated matters by suggesting to the police that Cindy suffered from multiple personality disorder. This claim appeared baseless, as no such diagnosis was made during Cindy's extended stay in the psychiatric hospital. Roy's insistence on this theory, coupled with his actions and concerns for Cindy that seemed inconsistent with his claims, cast doubt on his credibility. The overall situation presented a perplexing and unresolved puzzle, with the police fixated on discrediting Cindy rather than thoroughly investigating the case. On May 25, 1989, Cindy James started her day early, around 7 a.m., by going to the bank to deposit a check. She also visited a store to purchase groceries and had plans to meet with her best friend Agnes and Agnes' husband. Despite the police's suspicion that Cindy was fabricating the events surrounding her, their investigation continued. It's notable that over the 7 years of Cindy's case, the police spent an estimated $1.5 million, indicating the significant resources dedicated to the investigation. However, there was a sense of wariness from the police, as if they were conducting the investigation out of obligation rather than genuine concern. On the day in question, when Agnes and her husband arrived at Cindy's house, They found it odd that she wasn't there. While an empty house might not usually cause concern, Cindy's situation was different due to the ongoing harassment she faced. Agnes decided to alert the police while they searched for Cindy at places she might have visited, like the bank and the store. Their search led them to Cindy's car in the bank's parking lot. The presence of the car in the afternoon, after the bank's closing hours, raised alarm, especially considering her plans with her friends. Approaching the car, they found Cindy was not inside, deepening their concern. They went to the police station to report the situation. Despite initially being told they must wait 24 hours to file a missing person report, they convinced an officer to investigate due to the unique circumstances of Cindy's case. The officer, inspecting the car at night, discovered bloodstains on the driver's seat and found Cindy's purse, bank card, and a deposit receipt inside the car. The receipt showed Cindy had been at the bank early that morning. In the trunk were her grocery bags and a gift she had purchased for her friends at approximately 2:25 p.m. With this information, the police proceeded to Roy's apartment to question him. Arriving close to dawn, they found Roy at home. He explained that he had spent the afternoon and evening with a friend, having dinner and then staying at the friend's house until about 11:30 p.m. Roy's alibi appeared solid and could be corroborated, leading the police to continue their search for Cindy elsewhere. The disappearance of Cindy James mobilized the entire city of Richmond in a massive search operation. Helicopters, dogs, vehicles, and numerous people were deployed in an extensive effort to locate her. The search extended to various terrains, including underwater areas and the port, encompassing the wide radius around the location where her car was found. Despite the exhaustive efforts and resources utilized, Cindy remained missing. On June 8th of the same year, more than 2 weeks after her disappearance, Cindy was found in the yard of an abandoned house, approximately an hour and a half's distance from where her car had been located. The discovery was made in a region relatively close to the initial search area, which was surprising given the scale and intensity of the search efforts. The abandoned house, situated in an area frequented by many people, led investigators to theorize that Cindy could not have been left there for the entire duration of her disappearance. The likelihood of her being seen by passersby in such a busy area suggested that she may have been held captive elsewhere before being left at the location. Cindy's body exhibited signs of severe physical abuse, including bruises, cuts, and a syringe injection mark on her arm. She was found with her hands and feet bound, and a black nylon stocking was tied around her neck, consistent with previous incidents. The autopsy revealed that Cindy had been injected with a substantial amount of morphine and another sedative medication, leading to the conclusion that she had been drugged and then strangled. The police's conclusion about the case was controversial and unexpected. They posited that Cindy had committed suicide by injecting herself with a lethal dose of morphine and another sedative, then walking a significant distance barefoot to the location where she was found. Remarkably, her feet were clean, and her shoes were not found nearby. The police theorized that Cindy managed to tie her own hands and feet and strangle herself with the nylon stocking. This conclusion was met with skepticism and disbelief due to the implausibility of the scenario and the lack of concrete evidence to support such a theory. Several alternative theories have been proposed to explain Cindy's tragic fate. One theory suggests that her ex-husband was responsible for the harassment and attacks. This theory posits that Roy's apparent compassion and offers of help were tactics to divert suspicion from himself. Another theory implicates Pat, the police officer who developed a close relationship with Cindy. It suggests that Pat may have been her stalker, using his position to gain her trust, and then resuming the harassment after their relationship ended. However, this theory is complicated by the lack of concrete evidence linking him to the crimes. A less credible theory is that Cindy was responsible for the attacks herself, due to a mental disorder. This theory is largely dismissed due to the nature of her injuries and the circumstances of her death, which seem beyond the realm of self-infliction. Lastly, there is the possibility that an unknown stalker, unrelated to Cindy's close acquaintances, was responsible for the harassment and attacks. This theory considers the potential involvement of an outsider who targeted not only Cindy but potentially others as well. Each theory presents its own set of questions and uncertainties, leaving the true nature of Cindy James' tragic experiences unresolved. And that's the end of today's case. As always, I appreciate your support for my work. If you subscribe, like, and share this video, it will help me continue creating content. This was another episode of Unreal True Crime. See you soon. Day after day, we are surrounded by the presence of criminals. We are spectators to the deepest darkness in human actions and the bizarre reality that someone's suffering can be a form of pleasure. As dedicated investigators of the criminal world, we're on a mission to uncover the most shocking crimes and get inside the minds of those who commit them. I am Luke, and today I bring you another Unreal True Crime. The horrible case of Ella Bennett. Ella Bennett was born on April 12, 2002, in Georgia, USA, into a family beset by conflicts. To understand the environment she was born into and lived in during her short life, we must understand her mother, Charity Lee. Her life was fraught with challenges from a young age, marked by tragedy and later struggles with substance abuse and problematic relationships. Charity was born on the outskirts of Atlanta, Georgia, to Killa Clark Bennett and James Robert Bennett Jr. A defining moment in her childhood occurred when she was just 6 years old. Her father, a 37-year-old trucking company owner, was fatally shot in a violent attack inside their home in an exclusive residential area of Atlanta. He was found with multiple gunshot wounds to his head, chest, and back. The police reported that he was alone at the time of the crime and that there were no signs of struggle at the scene. Initially, authorities suspected organized crime. However, the aftermath of James's funeral brought a shocking development. Charity's mother, Killa, then 29, became the prime suspect in his murder. The charges were laid just 3 days after the couple, previously divorced, had remarried in Las Vegas. Evidence against Killa included details like the unlocked doors of their home and her status as the primary heir to the trucking business. Additionally, the patrol officer who transported Killa post-arrest noted that she occasionally exhibited satisfaction in her demeanor. During the trial, evidence was presented suggesting Killa had been in contact with a truck driver and might have been involved in the crime. Despite this, the jury found her not guilty due to insufficient evidence, leading to her acquittal. The presiding judge described it as the most peculiar case of his career, given the variety of plausible angles and hypotheses. The controversy surrounding her father's death and her mother's high-profile trial deeply impacted Charity. During her mother's imprisonment, she was cared for by her maternal grandparents. Throughout her childhood and adolescence, Charity sought love and approval from her mother. In a desperate bid for attention, she intentionally turned to drugs, frustrated by her mother's apparent disinterest. At 17, Charity battled depression and heroin addiction, straining her relationship with her mother to the point of being kicked out of the house. With just $100 given by her mother, Charity faced a stark choice between rehabilitation and potential overdose. This money, however, became her lifeline as she chose to enter a rehabilitation center in Chattanooga, Tennessee. She achieved sobriety for about a year, finding a place to live and enrolling in college. Nevertheless, her journey to sobriety was fraught with internal battles against her darkest demons. Nevertheless, during these difficult moments, she attempted to end her life on several occasions. At the age of 18, Charity became pregnant with her first child and, at 3 months pregnant, decided she must definitively leave behind that dark stage in her life to become the best mother for her unborn child. That baby, whom she named Paris, became the motivation she needed to recover. She often said that her son had saved her life. When Paris Lee Bennett was born on October 10, 1993, in Abilene, Texas, Charity was alone because the father of the child had left her as soon as he learned of the pregnancy. Later, when Paris was 17 months old, his father returned to their lives. Charity recounted that it was clear the father was not well, having been diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia and experiencing auditory and visual hallucinations. Paris was a very artistic and creative boy who enjoyed drawing. Beginning at the age of 3, he was introverted, not very sociable, and reluctant to show affection to people he knew. The boy, who dreamed of becoming a paleontologist, was focused on his academic life. He studied a lot, had an IQ of 142, and never had problems at school. His performance was much higher than his peers, and his teachers considered him a unique child with potential and a promising future. After having her baby, Charity married twice, but neither union was successful. One marriage was with a man named Brendan, but the circumstances of their breakup were not disclosed. In her desire to form a family, Charity started a relationship with a man named Jonathan, and at the age of 28, she became pregnant with her second child, a daughter. The news filled the family with joy, but initially, Paris did not seem happy about his mother's pregnancy, which worried Charity. However, once his sister was born, things changed. Paris fell in love with his sister, showing affection, protectiveness, and attentiveness towards her. Paris did not have many friends, and his little sister was his playmate. She was a loving, kind, intelligent, and very determined girl. From a young age, she demonstrated a compassionate nature, even expressing a desire for her mother to adopt all the hurt children in the world. Her loved ones described her as a little girl with a strong personality, always speaking her mind. Over the years, the happy home that Charity dreamed of turned into a nightmare. Her partner had serious alcoholism problems and was a violent man. According to Charity, the relationship ended when her husband was stopped by a police officer, and when asked to exit his vehicle, he refused. The officer reached into the car, and the driver sped off, dragging the officer along. The officer then shot and injured him in the leg. When Charity learned about the incident, she decided she could not allow her children to live in such circumstances, and chose to separate. The young girl enjoyed her relationship with her brother, finding fun and inspiration in playing with him, seeing him as a role model, and wanting to follow in his footsteps. Paris also appeared to enjoy his time with his younger sister. Childhood videos and photographs show them dancing, playing, and posing together, always smiling. In 2005, Charity and her children moved to Dallas, Texas, to be closer to Kyla, Charity's mother, who had been diagnosed with breast cancer. Charity was a loving mother, but the stress and anxiety from her partner's separation and disputes with her mother led her to relapse into drug use. During the 6 months that Charity was under the influence, Paris took on the role of the protective older brother, a situation that significantly changed his life. He no longer saw his mother as a loving figure, but as an unpleasant woman full of flaws and mistakes. Soon after, The three of them moved to Kyla's ranch in Seymour, Texas, where their lives became even more chaotic. It was during this time that a more emotionally unstable and violent side of Paris began to emerge. He had fits of rage, banging his head against the wall or throwing things on the floor to seek attention. However, Charity seemingly failed to interpret these signs. On one occasion, while living at Kyla's ranch, Paris broke a toy that his sister and a friend were playing with. Seeing this, Charity scolded and punished him. Minutes later, when his mother was away, Paris took a kitchen knife and ran out with it in his hand. Alarmed by the screams of one of the ranch workers, Charity and Kyla rushed to the scene and managed to disarm him after some struggle. Worried about her son and his violent outbursts, Charity took Paris to a psychiatric center. However, feeling that he was not given adequate attention, she decided to return home with her son. According to some accounts, there were other similar episodes later on. On one such occasion, Paris threatened his aunt and sister, leading Charity to take him again to a health center where he underwent various tests. The specialist told Charity that it was concerning for a child so young to have thoughts about harming others, recommending that she seek treatment for him. However, Charity did not take the psychiatrist's suggestions well, finding the evaluation erroneous and offensive, and disregarded the advice. Nonetheless, doubts about how to handle her son's situation lingered in her mind, and shortly after, the family moved to Abilene. Over time, Paris developed resentment towards his mother, leading to constant arguments between them. For Charity, although the changes in her son confused her, she didn't believe they were as serious as the psychologist had suggested. Unfortunately, she was mistaken. Then came February 4, 2007. That day, 13-year-old Paris was visibly upset with his mother from the morning. But as he was a teenager and fights between mother and son had become a daily occurrence, she didn't give it much thought. At that time, Charity was working at a well-known restaurant near Abilene and had hired a babysitter that day to help while she was at work. She thought she had faced worse things with Paris, and that, as in the past, everything would be resolved. So before leaving, she approached her son, kissed him, and told him she loved him. She had a demanding workday due to the Super Bowl. After midnight, around 12:30 a.m. on February 5, 2007, exhausted from the intense hours, Charity was cleaning tables at the restaurant, eager to finish her shift and return home to rest and see her children. That's when several police officers arrived at the establishment. As she went to find the manager, she heard her name mentioned in the office and felt terror. Confused and disoriented, she couldn't understand what was happening when an officer told her that her 4-year-old daughter was injured. Her immediate reaction was to ask what had happened and where her daughter was. Then, the officer informed her that her daughter had passed away. Unable to bear the shock, Charity fainted. There is nothing more terrifying for a mother than the death of a child. But the truth she heard from the police was much crueler and more painful than she could have imagined. While being taken by the police to the station, Charity asked about her son Paris, and an officer responded that they had him. This brief and stark answer made her realize her worst nightmare had come true. When she heard her daughter had died, she felt shattered. But learning that Paris was the perpetrator was like having those shattered pieces broken again. According to the police investigation, that night the babysitter had taken the kids out for Chinese food. They returned home and watched a children's movie. The little girl then went to her room to sleep, while Paris retreated to his because he had to finish his homework. It's unknown at what moment Paris decided to end his sister's life. But as a bright and manipulative teenager, around 10 at night, he managed to convince the babysitter she could go home, assuring her that his mother was on her way. With her absence, it would be easier for him to execute his plan. What happened once they were alone was a true scene of terror. Paris went to Ella's room, beat her, sexually abused the little girl, barely 4 years old, and suffocated her. Then, with a knife he had taken from the kitchen, he gave her 17 fatal stabs. Immediately after the attack, Paris picked up the phone and called a friend, engaging in a conversation about various topics. Roughly 2 minutes after ending this call, which lasted 6 minutes at 11:42 p.m., the teenager dialed 911. During the call with the emergency operator, Paris seemed desperate and distressed about the atrocious act he had just committed. When asked if the girl was bleeding, he admitted she was because he had inflicted several wounds on her. The operator instructed Paris to perform CPR while waiting for emergency services and provided the necessary directions. On the recording, Paris can be heard counting as if following the instructions, but investigators later concluded that he never attempted to revive her. This was deduced from the position of the little girl's body and the bloodstain patterns found at the scene. In an attempt to justify his actions, Paris told the operator that he had hallucinated and thought his little sister was a demon. Soon, the street outside was filled with police and paramedics. Paris was taken into custody and brought to the police station while the investigation began at their home. During interrogation, he again mentioned his demonic hallucinations, claiming he was sleeping with his sister and woke up to her face looking different, like a demon engulfed in flames. He said he thought she was possessed and attacked her in a panic attack. As Paris continued his account, however, he fell into contradictions. He mentioned feeling resentment towards his sister since her birth because he was no longer the center of attention. Initially, investigators thought jealousy might have motivated the attack, but then he revealed his original plan also included killing his mother when she returned home. After a long, confusing, and painful night, Charity arrived at the police station to see her son. The inconsolable mother was shattered but became emotional upon seeing Paris. She got up, hugged, and caressed him amid tears, showing him she was there for him. Paris's reaction, in contrast, was cold and emotionless. He simply sat and coldly asked her what she planned to do. When Charity broke down in tears asking what he meant, Paris reminded her that she had always said she could take someone's life if they harmed her children. His question was not out of fear, but rather a challenge. At that moment, Charity realized there was something very dark in her son. Following his arrest, Paris was charged with the murder but not tried as an adult, as the minimum age for adult prosecution in Texas is 14 years. Instead, he was charged in juvenile court and pleaded guilty to capital murder. Charity was left feeling confused and unsure of what to do next. Although Paris's defense team suggested he not plead guilty, for Charity, this was unthinkable. She couldn't hate her son and wanted him to be held accountable for his actions. Yet she also desperately sought to understand what had driven him to such extremes. While the prosecution aimed for a life sentence, his lawyer was preparing to secure the lightest sentence possible. As part of their efforts, the defense advised against Charity receiving mental health counseling, fearing that the prosecution might use the reports against Paris. Despite the traumatic ordeal she faced as the mother of both the victim and the perpetrator, she finally accessed counseling 2 years after the crime. She was diagnosed with severe post-traumatic stress disorder and depressive disorders. Charity lost 15 kilograms in 13 days, started self-harming, and harbored a strong desire to die. Nevertheless, she knew she had to be strong for Paris, whom she never stopped loving despite the circumstances. In the months following, Paris was in complete isolation. He didn't speak and communicated only through letters and drawings. 2 months before his sentencing, Paris began to reject simple instructions and became more violent. On one occasion, he repeatedly hit a fellow inmate in the face and received a warning for making derogatory comments about other inmates. He later flooded his cell and confronted guards who came to see what was happening. During evaluations, he referred to the crime against his sister with a smile on his face. Prison staff reported that Paris repeatedly tried to manipulate them into giving him his mother's address. At one point, Texas Department of Justice officials said he had hacked the jail's computer system, though the intent was unclear. During this time, 2 psychologists evaluated Paris, and a third reviewed the case. Each report described the boy as showing marked antisocial behavior, reduced empathy, and remorse. The first specialist wrote that he had a moderate risk of developing traits characteristic of psychopathy and pathological narcissism. The second asserted that the teenager displayed all the characteristics of a psychopath. The third went further, suggesting to Charity that she change her identity and move somewhere Paris could never find her. Paris was sentenced to 40 years in prison with the possibility of parole after 20 years, which is the maximum sentence for capital murder in a Texas juvenile court. Had he been an adult, he would have faced the death penalty. Paris will be eligible for parole for the first time in February 2027. If he is never granted parole, he will be released in February 2047, by which time he will be over 50 years old. 2 years after his sentencing, Paris made chilling and macabre confessions about his motivations. He revealed that his original plan was to take the life of his mother, Charity, but after much thought, he realized he wanted to make her suffer in a way that killing her would not achieve. By taking away her young daughter Ella, he knew Charity would suffer for the rest of her life. In 2013, 6 years after losing Ella, Charity became pregnant and decided to raise her new baby, Phoenix, on her own, despite still being devastated by the loss of her beloved Ella. Phoenix brought life, joy, and a renewed will to move forward back into her life. However, Phoenix's arrival was not without challenges. He was born with a defective heart valve and had to undergo open heart surgery. Fortunately, he recovered successfully. When Paris learned of his mother's pregnancy, he sent her a letter expressing his happiness, even though he knew he would never be able to meet his half-brother in person due to legal restrictions preventing convicted felons from contacting minors under 17 years of age. This restriction was a relief for Charity, who never brought Phoenix to the prison. Although Paris and Phoenix never met in person, they talked over the phone when Charity called her eldest son. Despite trying to handle these interactions naturally, Charity always harbored the fear of doing something that might put Phoenix in danger from his brother. In 2013, at the age of 19, Paris was transferred to an adult prison. 6 years later, in 2019, he gained significant attention after an interview with journalist Piers Morgan. In the interview, a calm 26-year-old Paris claimed he never felt he achieved any goal by killing his sister. He expressed being completely different from the person he was at the time of the murder and acknowledged the deep hatred he once felt for his mother, though he admitted to harboring thoughts of committing a crime since he was very young. Paris' story inspired documentaries revealing his manipulative and narcissistic personality. However, he consistently insisted that he was not mentally ill. For a long time, Charity visited and communicated with Paris through letters and phone calls. She shared her story with various media outlets, explaining that after her daughter's death, nothing made sense anymore, marking the end of the life she knew. Reflecting on the past, she regretted relapsing into drug use, believing it injured Paris, but she did not regret how she raised him. In 2021, Charity declared that she had ceased all communication with Paris. This decision came after learning he had become involved with a woman on bail living 2 hours from her home. Charity acknowledged that while she still loved Paris as her son, she did not like the man he had become. Following the tragedy, Charity established a foundation named Ella in honor of her daughter, which also stands for Empathy, Love, Lessons, and Action in English. Through this initiative, she advises families of both victims of violent crimes and offenders. Having experienced both sides of such tragedies, first as a child when her mother was accused of her father's murder, and later as a mother when Paris committed his crime, Charity understands the profound impact violent crimes have on families. She feels that the best way to honor her daughter, Ella, is by helping others navigate adversity, regardless of which side of the story they are on. This foundation serves as a testament to her commitment to supporting those affected by violent crimes and creating a platform for healing and understanding. Charity's work aims to provide guidance and support to those facing similar challenges, helping them to find a path forward amidst the turmoil and pain caused by such life-altering events. After 13 years working, Charity decided to shut down the Ella Foundation to focus on her son Phoenix. And that's the end of today's case. As always, I appreciate your support for my work. If you subscribe, like, and share this video, it will help me continue creating content. This was another episode of Unreal True Crime. See you soon.